That was quick, mate. G'day, mate. Good morning. How are things?
Oh, not too bad. Yeah,
What's it? Friday, the 1st of May, 2020.
yeah.
Wow.
Pinch and a punch on the first day of the month.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
another month, mate. So here we are, Friday, episode
yeah.
99 of the From the Valley podcast. A returning guest, Robert Cooper from CPR Insurance Services. How are you going? So, what's it like being for you over the last month or so? Has anything sort of changed much for you? I mean, obviously, there's people still. What are sort of people doing in your industry?
Well, we've had a bit of a change around. There's a lot of people that are working remotely, which is a big change for our industry. There's a lot of people asking whether they're covered in any way for COVID-19 in their insurance policies, and
A lot of the time they aren't, or what?
it depends on which insurance policy, but the main one that they're interested in is business interruption, which covers the downturn in income after a material damage loss. But it's not considered that COVID-19 is a material damage loss. But there is an extension on a lot of people's policies for infectious diseases, but then it gets written out if it's a quarantinable disease under the definition of the Quarantines Act of 1908, which the insurance industry didn't catch up on because that's been superseded by the Biosecurity Act of 2015. So now we've got lawyers scratching their heads wondering if they could try it on with an insurance company and set a precedent. So we've got a few ambulance chasers giving opinions that they think because the insurance industry used a definition from a superseded act that they might have a chance of getting claims paid for their clients. But the trouble with that, and remember, as a broker, we're always acting in the client's best interest. The trouble with that with insurance companies is that there's a definite intent not to cover a pandemic like COVID-19. And while they quoted a definition in a superseded act, there's a definite intent that they are going to exclude it. But so that's interesting times. But we have a number of different policies that will get tested, and some will be legitimate, like travel insurance. If you booked your travel last year for this July or whatever, and you've been forced to cancel the trip, then yes, you should be able to claim that on your loss of deposits and so forth on your travel insurance. But if you booked your travel insurance since March this year, you booked your trip overseas in March this year, the insurers won't pay because that was a known event that could affect your travel. So that's going to cause some controversy for people where they guess that would be all over the pandemic by the time they go away on their holiday. But what's actually happening is a lot of the travel companies are cancelling these trips and holidays instead, and really in that situation they should be able to get 100% of their money back anyway. So they're probably the two at the moment, and then we've got issues with management liability or directors and officers insurance.
Yeah, what sort of issues there?
Well, we're sending your staff home to work remotely.
Yep.
There's workplace health and safety issues.
Yep.
Training issues, mental health issues that could arise. At the same time, with people are having to lay off staff and retrench people and so forth, and there may be some repercussions under the employment practices section of that policy, where people may allege that this COVID-19 was just an excuse to trim staff and get rid of us, and there was still the ability for them to trade and so forth. So there could be lawsuits against the employers for that. But in the directors' situation, the directors have to make sure that their company is following all necessary requirements on behalf of their customers and their employees, and so there's a duty of care owed by directors to make sure that they're doing all the right things on behalf of the business, and that could go in any direction. I mean, if you decide to retrench staff, that could save the company money, and that could be considered a good thing. But on the other hand, if they it turns out that they're not being as they could have been still productive during that period, then the directors could be held liable for a poor decision that they've made. So that's going to be tested in the future as well. So interesting times ahead for us, and it's a brand new learning opportunity. And then we've all had to grapple with new technology like the Zoom program.
Zoom was always been a good webinar type program that has been around for a long time, but it's now all of a sudden just a mainstream thing. It's just like I can't believe I've probably got like 5 or 6 Zoom calls booked in the next week, whether it's with a client or whether it's a podcast like this. It's that's pretty much becoming a common way of obviously communicating with people, and it's sort of taken off, and it's pretty much a free service, really. It's great. And a couple of days ago we had the KBBG breakfast. Basically, I think it was 23 people, 24 people. That was quite good. It was good to catch up with all those people, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we got up to 26 people eventually, because there was a couple of people came in late, but and then a couple of people dropped out a bit earlier because they had other appointments, but that didn't matter. But no, I think everyone was really glad to see each other, and that's what I sense, is that we're all kind of missing each other. And while the ironic thing is, for a lot of us, we just took other people for granted and probably didn't catch up with them as much as we should. And now because we're restricted in being able to catch up with those people, we're feeling really isolated. So it's strange, but Zoom has filled the void in a lot of ways. And the great thing about Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype, and there's quite a few of them out there, but Zoom seems to be the main one, is that you can get it for free, and and 40 minutes is a fair amount of time before you get kicked off. So if you're using the free one, but a lot of us are now saying, well, this is quite valuable for our business, and have started subscribing to it. So
yeah, it's certainly something to consider, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that means you can host a meeting, 100 to 1,000 people, and but it's hard to know what's going to happen when things start to more get back to normal, or what they used to be like. We don't know if the airlines it's going to have one airline in the future.
I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing reports. I'm hoping that someone can save Virgin. I really do. I mean, I think there's certainly interested parties in trying to somehow fund it going forward. But I don't know. We'll have to obviously get the details. But it wouldn't surprise me either way with Virgin, whether they get saved or not. We've seen it before with other airlines here in Australia. So where they've obviously
Yeah.
gone out of business and haven't been saved. So, it's anything's possible. Anything's possible when it comes to that. That is definitely
Yeah.
for sure. Yes, a lot of. I mean, obviously, your tradition got bloody interrupted this year. Blues Fest, you're always going down there every year around just before Easter. That usually around that sort of time.
Yeah. It's sort of become a regular habit with my son to go to Blues Fest, and we have 5 days or 4.5 days really of lots of music of different varieties, and in a great atmosphere where everyone's very friendly with each other. On the most part, there's the odd argument about people pushing in front of others and so forth, but you've got to know how to fill the space in front of you. But 12, it's 12 o'clock to 10 o'clock every day on 4
days in a row. Yeah.
different stages. You've got all this music around you. It's like feeding your whole music intake for the whole year in one weekend, and seeing all these great acts. And it was very sad that it wasn't on this year. And
yeah, it's definitely sad, and it's certainly sad that that the festival industry is going to have a decimated 2020. It's who knows what's going to happen next year, but this year it's pretty much wiped out as far as events, festivals. It's just pretty sad that they're cancelling stuff all the way up to the end of October for anything. So have you seen that in your industry? You've had conferences cancelled or anything like that?
Yeah, we were supposed to go to a conference the week before Easter. That was cancelled. And then we were supposed to go to a conference in the first week of September in Adelaide, and that was cancelled. And then another conference in November, or end of October, early November, for our National Insurance Brokers Association, that got cancelled. The awards competitions that in the last few years we managed to pick up a few awards, they've been cancelled and put off till next year. And so yeah, there's a lot of things that everyone's sort of skipping quite a few things that we're used to each year. Maybe that will make the year feel a little bit longer. Who knows? But I'm president of the Windsor and District Historical Society, and we organise an Anzac Day commemoration at Windsor Memorial Park each year, and we had to cancel that. Our Lanark Fair was supposed to be on this Saturday.
This Saturday, was it?
Cancelled.
Yep.
Yeah, that's been cancelled. That was something that we were involved in, and
look forward to.
Yeah, just going forward, a lot of things that we did probably made the year go very quickly have gone. Leicester Kedron Brook Business Group, we've got it up and running again with the Zoom meetings. My Rotary Club's now meeting by Zoom.
I think they are. Our Apex Club has done 2 or 3 meetings via Zoom, I think. Another one coming up on Tuesday. So yeah, AGM's getting done this way now, and it's it's a different world out there, and things like we had a trivia night that was planned that we don't know what date we're going to put that on now. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think it's a wait and see.
Because the risk is organising something. Say you think, it should all be fixed up by December. So you organise something for early December, and then by the time we get there, we find out we still can't do it because maybe there's been a second wave of the virus. We don't know. It's really hard, and if you're not organising something and setting goals, you do feel a bit lost.
Exactly. Yeah. you do feel you just got to really take in with the current situation and do best what you can with your other people, staff and clients. So you've just got to try to help them as best you can, obviously through this whole environment, and hopefully at some stage down the future won't be, things will start getting a bit closer to being back to normal. I mean, sport is one of those things that it's just I love my sport, and to have every type of sport that you follow not taking place at the moment is quite interesting. And it's hard to know when the NRL or the AFL or when the NBA season had nearly finished and they basically cut it off with not many games to go. So where the future of sport is the hard one, and May is going to dictate a lot of what's going to happen, I guess, going forward. I mean, April, everyone sort of said, okay, well, can't do anything in April. You can't. It's just, we're done. We're in lockdown. The whole world's in lockdown in April. May, we're probably in lockdown for the next couple of weeks at the very least. But then after that, who knows what's going to happen? Anything can happen. We've just been in a situation where in Australia, New Zealand, where we've had incredibly low numbers of infection rates for COVID-19. We've had less than 100 deaths, which is very surprising to me, considering where we were 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, I think we've done really well, and most people are listening to the requests from the Prime Minister and Premier, and doing the right thing, because ultimately those decisions are not about us personally; it's about the whole community. And people might say, "Oh, this is unfair for me," but we've got to think a bit more about what's best for the community, and being a two-way way of spreading the infection. The fact is, if we go out, we can pick it up from someone else. The fact that most of us, I say most of us because it's not all of us, but I'm sure that but most of us have done the right thing and stayed at home most of the time, and worked remotely where we can, and not gone out as much, and that's limited things. But we mainly saw that the spread of the virus through travellers, and the big concern is the new cases
from overseas.
The community spread cases, and we did really well in locking that down with the travellers. But the community cases are the ones where they can't identify if that person's come into contact with any travellers. So they picked it up from somewhere else. And that's where that new app is going to be effective in trying to identify hotspots or clusters around the place. And if that is effective and works, and I think a quarter of the population have now downloaded the app. If that works effectively, then we'll have more restrictions lifted and can try and get back to what we're doing. But I think for a fair while we won't be able to travel overseas. But you can see them lifting that change with New Zealand, because
they've done well.
New Zealand and Australia seem to copy each other in a positive way about ways of doing things, and I can see Australia and New Zealand, but I think even places like Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, they're going to be closed to us for a lot longer, because their health systems and the population of people, they haven't been able to control it like we have, and I think Australians should be proud of themselves. So
I think we've done a lot. We've made some good decisions. Luck's always has a bit to play in these things as well, and I think Australia's always known as a lucky country, but luck has sort of played a bit that people, maybe there's less dickheads in Australia than we thought there were, or something. Everyone seems to be abiding by the rules pretty much. Predominantly, there's only a few that seem to to be flouting the rules. We've had a few instances of mass gatherings, but it's not really, that hasn't really led to any major outbreaks. But so there's it's certainly been a bit of luck, and the isolation from the rest of the world has certainly helped for New Zealand and Australia. Europe some of those countries in Europe have had a pretty bad time. Are you surprised at all of how bad it's been in America, though?
No. The main reason for that is because their health system is mainly a private health system, and naturally, if you are poor, and there are a lot of poor people in America, they can't afford private health. Interestingly, you're in your area, you come across bankruptcies, but the leading cause of personal bankruptcies in America is people that owe money to hospitals and health specialists. And they put their health first, but it's caused them to lose their homes. So a lot of people have each state does have their own little public health system that's not controlled federally, but that varies from state to state. But the fact is the private health system it puts people off going to check out their symptoms. They're not going off to the doctor to get something checked. So there's all this education given to us about the symptoms that we have, and that we should go and get them checked straight away. And that's the big thing that we're hearing at the moment from our government. But in America, people say, well, if I go and get this checked out, it's going to cost me a fortune, and I can't afford that. And then on top of that, they've got 26 million people now unemployed over there, and that's puts a lot of pressure on their own public health system. And we're seeing those scenes of big trenches being dug on the island off New York with mass burials. And it's shocking, but United States, there's a lot of great things about the United States, but in regards to trying to do something to look after all their people, and there's 320 million of them.
It's just very hard, very difficult.
But it's just America's the size of Europe, and it's probably split up just as well as Europe is into lots of different countries, but they all can speak English. And the trouble is, though, that you'll see on the west coast, California, they're very much like Australia. Then on the east coast, most of the east coast are very international orientated and take a more universal approach to things. And the interesting part is that those places very much want to have health systems like ours or England's, but they're the most interesting parts of America for most travellers, and they're the ones that travel into those places and have been able to spread the disease amongst them. And the big danger is that if it spreads much more widely, that's a current figure of 50,000. It's going to be very insignificant in the long run for that country. And it's plus they've got a president that tries to keep optimistic and try and talk everything up, but he's lost a lot of credibility around the place. He was kind of in denial. I remember one interview was, we've got 15 known cases and we should have one by next week.
That was the end of February or start of March. I think, look where they are now.
Now they've got 1 million cases or something. I'm not
They've
exactly sure.
They've got over 1 million cases in America, which is, they've only got 300 million people. So,
yeah.
So
If you have England's a big concern too, because England's got
all of Europe, a lot of Europe is, yeah.
65 million people in England, and they've had 26,000 deaths. Now, we've got 25 million people in Australia, and we haven't had 100 deaths yet. Or just times it by 3 and make us 75 million. We're only talking about 300 deaths compared to that country that has 26,000 deaths among 65 million people. So that's how well we've done. Now, a lot of them are saying, oh, Australia's so spread out. But we had a lot of travel in between states, and it was necessary for the states, a lot of the states, to close down and not allow interstate visitors, or if they did come in, they had to quarantine for 14 days. So we stopped the spread that way and been focusing on the local communities. A lot of people in North Queensland want to separate from southeast Queensland and allow travel, so they want their businesses back up and running. But there was a cluster in Cairns, so and there's a lot of travel between Cairns and Townsville. So, I mean, once they're satisfied using all the testing and we've gone a reasonable period, then parts of Australia, particularly the country regions, should be able to open up for us.
Mm.
And they need it because, I mean, they've been hit hard with drought, bushfires, major storms. Fortunately, we haven't had any cyclones come to Australia on this side of the country, but they've had a couple in Western Australia. But we've been very lucky not to have a cyclone just to top everything off. And but those people in the country areas have been doing it really tough. And one of the ways we can help them is to go and travel to those places, and we're not allowed to travel more than 50 kilometres.
No.
So we can't go and visit them and put money into their towns. And so I think from a Queensland point of view, while we can keep the border shut with New South Wales and everyone else, it would be nice to get to the stage where we can start to travel around our own state, and instead of going on an overseas holiday.
Exactly.
Holiday
I think I'm hoping by the end of this month we can sort of travel more than a 50 kilometre so I can get up, and I've got to go up and see my parents. I haven't seen them for a while, and they're up in Maroochydore at the moment. So I don't want to go up there if I can't go up there.
Well, I've got a staff member working.
She lives up in Caloundra,
Yeah. So so she can't really. She's got to stay working remotely as well. But interesting times. We're living through a historical moment, so we're going to have to document all this for the Windsor and District Historical Society. But what's been interesting is some of the things that have come up. There's photographers taking photos of families in isolation to record it for prosperity. There's people are putting teddy bears in their windows so that the kids can go on a bear hunt, and there's all these wonderful things that are coming out of it from the local community, adapting them. And someone came up with the idea of dressing up just to take the bins out to the end of the driveway. But there's lots of things like that. I think someone in our neighbourhood came up with the idea of having driveway drinks at 5 o'clock. At the end of your driveway, everyone has a drink at 5 o'clock and watch the sunset. And so there's lots of great things that people are doing to try and keep positive and manage the situation, and that's fantastic. Love seeing that.
Yeah, it's definitely the statistics has certainly been quite interesting when it comes to this. I mean, a lot of, it's 233,000 deaths all up. That's quite a lot. And then there's a lot of countries in Europe that have just been hit really, really badly. Obviously, France, the UK, Italy, Spain have all 24,000 plus deaths each. There's lots of infections there, and then you see ones like, I mean, ours we obviously got a good rate. Then Singapore, 16,000 cases in total, but only 15 deaths. Seems it's quite surprising. What's this,
Yeah.
they've got a really good health system over there in Singapore or something. Only 15.
Well, they've always sort of been considered a bit of a socialist state, but they did lock down really early. But then they reduced their restrictions a lot quicker than everyone else, and they had a spike
again,
once again in infections, and they've had to restrict things again. So, and they're probably the ones to watch as they do things. But Singapore,
those numbers just are surprising that we don't know how many of those are active cases, and how it doesn't say that too many of those are critical. But it's obviously another spread, and it's quite interesting. And then you're obviously seeing all these other countries that, I mean, India only had 1,100 deaths, which is quite low for something that's got over 1 billion people. It's just, anyway, we could talk about the coronavirus and stats all day, but it's just the world that we are in at the moment. How's your son coping with all of this too, Johnny? I mean, how's he sort of?
well, his
daughter, what are they sort of getting up to in these times?
Yeah, the son's at TAFE and is doing it by correspondence. He was doing some work experience with Style magazine every Friday, but they're all working remotely, and and that's given them a tough time, and so. I think the biggest thing I've noticed is that there's a bit of a drop in motivation, and there's this feeling amongst them when they come across something a bit difficult in their schoolwork that they just shut down immediately. They don't think about, oh, shall I ring someone and ask them and get over this, which they would put their hand up in class, or they're sort of feeling that they don't have anyone to immediately talk to. So it's been a big change for the kids. My daughter has struggled considerably with working remotely, so much so that we've had to insist that she goes back to school because she can't organise herself. She needs people around her supervising her. So yeah, but some people will adapt and some people won't. It's certainly been tough on a lot of kids, and I can understand how school teachers feel that that they want to protect themselves against the virus, but the kids are less likely to spread the virus, but school teachers can spread it amongst their fellow school teachers, and I don't know if they can work out a better system of closing the staff room or something and social isolating between themselves, but I think I can understand why school teachers are worried about their own health and safety, but on the other hand, our kids are and their education is being affected. And I'm particularly sorry for the people that are doing their year 12 this year, and how that's really turned things upside down for them. So it's going to be interesting in the education area, that's for sure.
And obviously in the business area, we just spoke before about events and festivals being cancelled, and that's obviously there's lots of businesses in those sort of industries, musicians as well, that's certainly suffering as a result of all this. It is good to see. I don't know if you've seen it online at all, but there have been obviously some musicians that have got together and done some acoustic stuff, and done that like via Zoom and those types of mechanisms.
Yeah,
That's been fun to watch, and there's been some stuff on that. So we're getting a few different things that would not normally happen as a result, which it's always good to see something new and something enjoyable and something nice to listen to in the case of good music and acoustic and that sort of thing.
yeah. It'd be nice if they had the technology where you could actually jam with another person. There's a couple of seconds delay as things bounce
There's
back
that.
and forth.
Yeah, it all depends on the speed of the what's going on with the internet. Sometimes it just seems very
Yeah,
instant. I mean, this conversation seems fairly instantaneous, but it's not. It's not always the way. There's always sometimes there is that bit of delay, and there is especially
yeah,
with talk to the people in that who do that sort of thing with music, and they even teach music over Zoom or whatever program they're using. So it is
yeah,
possible, but there is that. Yeah, it's that real effect, I guess, as well. But
yeah.
it's
A
still
lot
good.
of musicians have been learning their instruments or learning new songs over things like YouTube and the internet and online, and probably Zoom has taken that up. It's not easy compared to reaching over to someone's instrument and pointing to the place where they need to put their finger. But you for a lot of musicians, there's a lot of stuff on the internet, and a lot of ways of teaching the instruments that way. A lot of people are creating music live using Zoom. Even I came out with an updated version of a bluesman's song and put that on YouTube.
Do you have
Coronavirus
your own
blues.
do you have your own YouTube channel? Do you? Or
Yeah, I do, but I originally set it up for CPR insurance services, but
turn into a
it's just
music
got
channel?
it's ended up CPR insurance services music music channel, uh, but it's great to see how people are adapting and sharing this stuff in a different way than they shared it before. So,
Mm.
but missed out on Blues Fest. Johnny and I were talking about going to see Green Day at the end of the year. We're not sure if that's going to be on still. It's it's difficult, but there's other ways of accessing those things. But the
Mm.
entertainment industry, I think maybe a lot of people took them for granted. Just thought this was
Mm.
just a bit of a
Yeah,
luxury. But
sometimes in these sort of situations you can't always predict what's going to happen as far as who's going to be affected. I mean, the cafes have had to change their model. The restaurants have had to change their model to a takeaway model.
yeah,
I certainly miss sitting down at a cafe and having a coffee or lunch or going to a
yeah,
restaurant or a fancy restaurant. Catering, all these things are changing. Um, you know,
yeah,
People are going out of work or out of business as a result
yeah,
of all of this as well. So it's been a shock to the system. That's for sure, for people who
yeah,
have a certain expectation and a way of life, and those sort of industries, amongst others. Obviously lots of industries are affected, but these are the ones that
yeah.
stick out and are going to probably be affected longer. For
Yeah, I'm worried.
months and
I'm
years.
worried about that. Yeah. I mean, the last 20 years, we've really seen the restaurant and cafe industries grow to a really high standard in Queensland, and particularly in Brisbane. There's they're pretty average 20 years ago, but this new generation of enthusiasm that's come along and driven the cafes and restaurants, and I think that they'll be so badly in debt that they may not be able to run their business. And because, as you know, if you go bankrupt, you can't open up another business yourself. And so I'm worried about them. I guess a lot of them have reverted to takeaway,
Mm.
but that's not accounted for 100% of their cash flow. at all. Yes, they get a bit of savings by not having wait staff and probably not needing to wash dishes and as much. They still have pans and things to clean, but yeah, I hope that they recover really well. But the entertainment industry contributed to that area by being an attractant. You know, like you just look in Fortitude Valley with the Fortitude Music Hall and the restaurants around there that are filled when there's a concert on there, and how popular they are, and how those businesses have been badly affected. And then after you've had a really good time eating at the restaurant and going to the concert and then hitting the nightclubs, you know, they're not open. So it's the entertainment precinct, which Fortitude Valley's well known for, has been badly hit. And the sooner that they can have their restrictions lifted, the better, because the longer it's left, poorer their cash flow situation will be, and a lot of them will just fold. And and then it'll be really difficult to get into the restaurants that have remained because there'll be so few of them. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'd say that what will happen once they are allowed to open again is that the ones that do open, you know, they're going to potentially get pretty busy. So the strong will survive, and if the strong survive, then they'll, I don't know if they say reap the rewards, but they potentially, from what you could predict, is that they could be, you know, quite busy once they're allowed to open, because they're there and people want to get out, and people want to sort of take advantage of being able to get out and get back to their favourite restaurant, or if it's still there, or another alternative. So it's interesting times. We don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know if there's. I think restaurants. I don't know if they're going to be open for another couple of months, but you know, it's interesting times. And the Valley, as you said, very, very quiet. You know, Chaplain Watch have a lot less work to do now as a result of the economy in the Valley. You know, it used to have 30 or 40,000 people on a Friday or Saturday night in the 7 or 8 block area.
Yeah.
Now it's got nobody there at all. So it's quite a drastic change for that. You just wouldn't expect that would have ever happened, you know. That something so busy, so bustling, can be taken down by basically a new type of flu that's very contagious. And that is getting out there, and it's, you know, it's done this. That's what it's done. So, and this is, you know, you've had to act this way, really. Otherwise, you know, the consequences are there to be told as to if these things, if Australia didn't act. So,
it's I mean, but even if you look forward to getting out, a lot of us we've had a drop in our own incomes as well. We managed to save money because petrol prices are lower. We're not driving as much, and and we're probably eating at home a lot more, which is cheaper than eating at restaurants. But the thing is, it all comes down to how many people have been affected income-wise. We're seeing a lot of freezes on wage increases, rent increases. Landlords are being forced to give rent holidays to their tenants, and that causes a shortfall for landlords. Though that probably justifies keeping negative gearing, doesn't it, Tim?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with property prices won't be going up anytime soon. Let's put it that way. Here in Brisbane, when certainly we're right for the picking to sort of go up at we're based on where Brisbane was sort of sitting. But now with what's happened, that's going to certainly throw a spanner into any sort of wanting to take advantage of where Brisbane was at. It's anything property prices are going to come back before they go back up. So
yeah,
it's
interest rates are so low.
Oh, and that's and that's obviously had an effect. But as far as
normally that has an effect on driving up property prices because people can borrow more, but no, people are just holding off, and you can't blame them at all.
Going back to something that I couldn't really understand, but it's probably a month ago that it really was an issue. This toilet paper. I mean, I couldn't understand why people were buying toilet paper. Could you understand? What was your sort of thoughts, and what do you think people were doing that?
I could not understand it either. I thought people.
And then someone sort of said, okay, well, one of the reasons potentially was because it actually takes up so much space on the shelf, and that's because it takes up so much space on the shelf at the supermarket. When a few people buy it because they, for whatever reason, they need, think they need toilet paper, then everyone else fucking copies them, and all of a sudden you've got this bloody copycat syndrome where people have just bought it because shit, there's nearly running out of this stuff, and I haven't bought any for a while, or I need to stock up, or something, and then all of a sudden you've got nothing on the shelf, and that's because it took up so much space on the shelf.
Yeah, I found that unbelievable. But human nature with the hoarding process, you see it come out. The thing is, the other positive, well, it isn't really a positive thing. The great thing is we can see who are all the really good people in our community, and we can see the people that are fairly selfish in the community, and that probably means that we can focus in on the really good people and hang around them because they're good people to be with. But the ones that have been acting fairly selfishly, and if you go into someone's house and find a chockers with toilet rolls, you can sort of see that they've been acting in their own self-interest. But I predicted that their hand sanitizers, the liquid soaps, Glen 20 disinfectant sprays, and that would all go first, and they didn't. And we went into the shops.
They're pretty harder to get than anything at the moment, really.
But we went into the shops, and instead of buying one can of Glen 20, we bought 2 cans. But then after the toilet rolls, the people going in and putting 6 cans of Glen 20 in the tons of sanitizer and soap in their baskets before the supermarkets woke up to the fact that they needed to limit those. And then suddenly pasta and rice went. Seemed to be wiped off the shelves, and so it's been interesting watching how people have reacted to different things. I don't know what drove the toilet roll.
I think partly was that somebody bought it and then somebody copied, and then it takes up a lot of shelf space. I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, you can still go into the shops and find not much hand sanitizer. But if you go up to the front counter of some of the supermarkets and say, "Look, I'm really desperate for hand sanitizer," we have absolutely none in our household. They'll reach down into a box and get a couple out for you. And so there are. It is being what's the word? Limited, rationed. But if you're really desperate, you can find all these things still. But I just don't know why people went absolutely mad on things like toilet rolls. But it's given us a lot of jokes, though.
It certainly has. It's lots of memes and all of that sort of stuff going on. That's for sure. It's certainly produced, you know, a lot of different things going on.
And there's a story about a guy in Adelaide who bought 5,000 rolls, hoping that he could on-sell them for double the price because there's so much demand
turn it
for
into a
them.
business.
Yeah, no one was buying them. So he decided to go back to the shop and try and get a refund on them. And the shop said, no, they're perfectly all right. They're fit for purpose. We're not taking them back. And and you know, that's fair enough. But it's, you know, people have all right. You know, it's all very well to try and stock up in case, you know, things like there's a shortage of stuff, but we all have to share these things together as a community, and you know, and the toilet roll, that's going to be something to laugh about when we're over all this. One of the symbols of the coronavirus, the teddy bear's a positive symbol. The toilet rolls are a negative symbol of it. So we'll, so that's been a bit of a interesting. You still there, Tim?
Yeah, I'm here, mate. Can you see me?
Yep, there's something happened on the screen there for.
Just some jokes that I just found in relation to the coronavirus. I don't know if you can see that on your screen. But,
every disaster movie starts with the government ignoring the scientists. Yeah, that's not bad.
If you need 144 rolls of toilet paper for a 14-day quarantine, you probably should have been seeing a doctor long before COVID-19.
Yeah.
So, coronavirus edition of Where's Wally? You've got, Olympic Games. Everyone saw the rings like that. Yeah.
Oh we got that cancelled.
We need toilet paper. No, it's not. It's it's not Chipotle. It's a respiratory virus. Yeah, some interesting stuff. Interesting memes that are sort of happening there.
Now that's the other great thing about our current predicament is the sense of humour from people at the moment. A lot of people are still able to generate laughs. I know some people say, you shouldn't be laughing at the coronavirus because it's killing people, but you know, you've got to be able to laugh at these things, and some of the things that people are sharing in social media, it's cheering a lot of us up, and I've enjoyed it. A lot of those cartoons and memes and stuff, and
has Mandy been any different at all? She's still the same.
She's a lot more stressed out because she's probably worried more about cash flow.
Yeah, of course.
And making sure we can pay the staff and pay our bills. But and that comes from our clients. A lot of them are a lot slower to pay. A lot of them are, we have some flexibility with insurers about paying them, so we can work with our clients, but not every insurance company is being flexible in that regard, and we've got to try and keep them covered, even though they're not able to pay the bills yet. So, and as a result, if they don't pay the bills, we only receive our money for placing the cover with an insurance company, and that delays things for us.
Yeah.
So that's causing a little bit of stress for her. So,
what's this long weekend look like for you anyway? In isolation.
Well, I'll be playing my guitar, reading books.
I've got the Turnbull book. Have you got that one yet?
I've ordered it.
I've ordered it too. I've actually got a Kindle version as well. But
right. So I'm looking forward to reading that book because seems to be confirming everything that I thought was happening with Malcolm Turnbull.
It's interesting to see. It's interesting what he says about Abbott and Credlin. That's for sure. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read Nikki Savva's book on the road to ruin, but that gave a pretty good idea of the Peter Credlin and Tony Abbott period. And
it was like Abbott was one of these guys that was basically would just fucking do whatever she said. She was the boss. He was the servant. he was he's the one supposedly leading the country, but really it was her.
Yeah, there's nothing like a dominant woman in your life. I suppose Mandy's probably the Peter Credlin in my life.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but yeah.
It was interesting seeing that amount of control. But that's all fascinating. It's human beings, it's human nature and how they are. But I've always sort of been against that principle that you look after yourself first, and that comes through from that particular side of politics, and I like to think more community minded, and I believe Malcolm Turnbull's of that attitude as well. I think Malcolm Turnbull was a really good bloke. Yes, he's giving his version of history, but you can balance that out with a couple of other books. Nikki Savva's written a book on his demise. David Crowe from The Age, he's written a book on it. So you can get some other perspectives on it if you don't believe Malcolm's take on his demise. Just the same way as if you read Julia Gillard's autobiography, and Kevin Rudd's autobiography, you get to see their versions of the events, and somewhere in the middle is pretty well true. And that's probably why I'm always sort of in the middle when it comes to these things. I think we all have to learn to compromise more, particularly when we're going through a pandemic. We all have to learn to give a little and not look to take as much as we did before. And some of those people that I consider great people are those people that do give a lot more and don't expect anything in return. And those people are highlighted right now. All the people going out into the community, leaving notes in the elderly's letterboxes saying, look, if you need someone to talk to, or someone to go to the shops for you, or someone to go to pick up your prescription from the chemist, let me know. And seeing all those sorts of things just reminds you of what a fantastic community we have. And despite what happens at the top in politics or overseas in America, we're very lucky where we live and what we have in our local community, and I'm very thankful for it. And as a result, I'm more motivated than I'm missing giving my time to a lot of different groups at the moment. The Windsor and District Historical Society, we would be running a quarterly meeting in the third Sunday of May. We can't do that this month. Peter Lattimore was going to be the guest speaker from Lattimore Building Designs, and talking about the Queenslander buildings and so forth. And we've had to cancel that. The lady that is creating all the artwork for Woolston Village, we were getting her to talk in our August meeting. So hopefully by then that was all going to be completed, and all the interesting ideas that she came up with. So we've had to cancel that meeting, and at the moment we're waiting to see if we have an AGM in November. So all those things, I'm looking forward to getting back and giving my time to those different groups. And the ECA being cancelled, our main fundraiser in our Rotary Club was parking at the ECA. So that's going to affect our financial year. So there's lots of things that I gave my time to that I'm unable to at the moment. But when you balance it out with seeing how people are adapting to it, how restaurants and cafes are adapting to takeaway and deliveries, and people volunteering their time to help their neighbours, there's a lot to be very thankful and happy about.
Yeah, definitely, mate. You're always a positive person. You always sort of tell it as it is, how you see it. It's always a great friend. It's always good to listen to you and get your perspective and get exactly what's sort of going on with stuff surrounding yourself. And I love it how you always support the local businesses as well. You're always out there sharing a social media post, plugging over the Husk Cafe or some other local business, getting them sort of noticed in a time like this, where it's more important than ever. And I think that's, your generosity speaks volumes. It's been good to catch up, Rob. It's been great. We're probably going to have to end it pretty soon, but it's certainly been good to catch up, my friend. And if anything that you wanted to, obviously, final to say, we might wrap things up shortly.
No, I wish everyone out there the best and stay safe. And we'll see each other on the other side. And yes, I'll probably be a lot more hugging. I have more of a hugging mentality before, because I have really missed seeing people in person around the place, and I'm looking forward to getting through this time and seeing everyone on the other side, so we can get on and enjoy our lives.
No, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your support as a person in business in the community, and also as a person who's supported this podcast. And we've been able to get to just about, we're coming up to 100 episodes next week. So it's going to be, it's been a bit of a goal that I set a couple of years ago that's being achieved, and without people like yourself, it's not going to get achieved. So, but it's great to have you as a friend, and I thank you very, very much, and look forward to catching up again real soon, mate.
No worries. Good to catch up, Tim, and look forward to seeing you soon.
No worries, mate. All the best.
Okay, bye.